Welcome to Healing Beyond the Trauma. My name is Megan Alves. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And this podcast, I want to break the stigma around mental health and have real, unfiltered conversations about healing. Some stories are going to be raw, even triggering at times, but they're real and they're honest because healing starts with honesty. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, stuck, or like you're carrying it all, you're not. Here, you're going to gain validation, practical tools, and a new perspective to move forward. Because healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming your future. So let's dive in. Hey, I have such a special guest today, and welcome back to another episode of Breaking Through the Trauma. Again, I'm Megan Alves, a licensed clinical social worker here to talk about breaking stigmas of mental health. And I'm going to do a short introduction, and I'm probably not going to do Dallas Knight justice in the work and the badassery that she is doing in our female veterans community and so much more. But today I have Dallas Knight. We actually freaking went to high school together. And so it has been so fun to see her journey and her growth. And we've stayed in contact, especially through mental health and all of these journeys. But she's a mom. She's an author, podcaster, female veteran. I can go on, and she's like a beautiful soul inside and out. It is such an amazing blessing to even know you, let alone be able to share you with the community for mental health and all that you're doing. So thank you for being here today. It's so good to see you.
It is an honor and a pleasure to team up with you on this. And yeah, we've known each other a really long time, and we've always managed to just connect and stay connected in some way, shape, or form. And we share mom stories and mental health struggles and the highs and the lows. And I think that's why I value our friendship, is that we've always been very transparent in what's going on.
Yeah. And I mean, that is like the beauty of, I think, everything that both of us are doing is that I know it's such an honor to be able to have a conversation with another woman and just be my damn self, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dallas, how are you doing today? Oh, today was a fucked up day. I got a headache. My neck hurts, right? Megan, how are you?
Right.
I'm right there with you. Like, I'm just in momhood of teenage life,
Mm-hmm.
and today sucked. Yep. I love you. I miss you, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get to come to Vegas every once in a while, and I try to make every effort. I think most of the time that you come to Vegas, I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, let's at least like have a coffee or something,
Yeah.
right? And I love that. And I hope for any female or guy, I hope you get your dude to go and like have a coffee with, but especially, our moms and going through just the struggles of all things, like just having those women to be like, hey, how's it going? And know that there's like no judgment, just
Yeah.
we can go months without talking, and it's like so nice to have that. So thank you for creating that space for me too, girl, because it's nice to.
Anytime. Anytime. You said two things that I didn't realize were so valuable until just a few years ago. And that is that female connection. We all need it as women. It's imperative for our survival. And it's that safe and secure transparency, because we're not all living in a highlight wheel on social media. And most of the time, that's all we share. And it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to have a meltdown. It's okay not to know what the hell you're doing as a mom. The kids don't come with manuals. I joke and say, like, it's literally the most important job we will ever have in our lives. And we get no certification, no training, no degree, no manual, no nothing. We basically go off of parenting on what we liked and didn't like that our parents did, and maybe a self-help book here and there that we happen to pick up and might have time to scan through.
Well, and I love all that you just said, and I'll never forget. I think it was probably like 4 years ago. So, Cade was almost 10. Blake was like 8, 7, something like that. And we were just going through those struggles of like the preteen stuff. And my dad was like, I don't envy the generation of parenting. And I was like, what do you mean? And thinking like, yeah, but he didn't have it easy either. He was trying to
Mm-hmm.
do his best. I know that. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I feel like sometimes you bring up so many aspects of parenting because you guys have like 5,000 parenting books and manuals
Yeah,
and so many
if
people
not
trying
more.
to give us so much information.
Yeah, and you got your Instagram reels, the experts, and your Facebook moms and your mom groups, and all you see is, oh, today I got dressed and I look at me. I'm like, you're lucky if I like threw makeup on, let alone did my hair. And it's just, it's wild. I think we put too much pressure and expectation on the ideal parent. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to, in my opinion, are you giving your children the attention that they need? Not that they want, but what they need. And are you creating a safe and welcoming space for them? Because the world is nasty. And no matter what, they have to feel safe and secure in the home. They have to be able to come home and say whatever is on their mind. If
Yeah.
it's good, bad, or ugly, any of it, like we have to create that safe space. And we do that through open communication and also being transparent through our own journey. I think a lot of parents want to sugarcoat their own lives, or they keep things, their struggles, their mishaps, their mistakes that they've done throughout their life to themselves because they want to put forth this persona that, look, I'm a great mom or I'm a great father, like follow in my footsteps. But I think that almost sets our children up for failure. We have to share our failures and our mistakes with our children, and they have to know it's okay to fail, because that's where the most valuable lessons come in, and that's where we get stronger and where we can even lend ourselves to other individuals through our life journey.
Yeah. And, it's one of the things that you said, like through failure, being able to share that with our kids so that they don't have an unrealistic expectation. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, before we started recording, I said, I don't, this podcast stuff, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, but I'm not going to try and show
Okay.
up and be perfect with it. That's an unrealistic expectation to place on myself to try and be a perfect podcaster.
But you're doing it. You're doing more than the person who's too scared to do it and wait until they're quote unquote perfect, right?
Yeah.
You're already 3,000 steps ahead of them just by doing it.
Yeah.
So again, and I think that's a lot of the world's perception and pressure that they put on us, with all these spotlights on celebrities and very successful people. I challenge anyone who has any level of success, and not just financially. If you're successful as a mom, cool, let's share your success, but by all means, let's share your failures too, because I know your ass just didn't figure that out overnight. Like, you didn't just pop out a kid and be like, oh, I know everything. Like, no, there's no freaking chance in hell. I don't believe it. And if you feel otherwise, freaking call me, because I'll pay you lots of money to let me know how the
How
hell
to
to
be
deal with my
perfect.
7-year-old right now, because I'm going crazy and I've already done this once before.
Right. Yeah. So Dallas, how old is your oldest? Because he's now like, I mean, I just saw pictures.
Yeah, he's 20.
20.
I know I
That
have a
is,
20-year-old. I feel really old saying that, but it's
you're
it's
freaking old,
wild
girl.
because I think of him and he's incredible. God, he's
Oh,
incredible. And it
yeah.
gives me that much more confidence in that, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was very transparent with him. I talked to him about everything. He knows all my failures, all of my low times. He's been there. He's held me while I bawled my eyes out. And he is remarkable. He's a remarkable young man. And I think about his age, and I mean, I was in a foreign country fighting a war that I had no idea what I was doing, what I was supporting. I was just basically doing what I was told when I was his age, and he's just out there conquering the world.
He is. Yeah. And
Yeah.
huge kudos to you, right? Because you did that through trusting yourself
Yeah.
and the best that you can. I would venture to say. I mean, I
Oh,
also
we
know
all
through
do the best that
conversation.
we can. We may not think that it's the best when we're doing it, but it is. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit or enough grace at times.
Yeah. And I love that. Like, I think all of us need to hear that is giving yourself credit and giving yourself grace
Hmm.
through these different seasons, especially in parenthood. And, you know, you did the damn thing, and now your son is out there doing great things too.
Yeah,
And he's a
he's
great
a good
human.
man. He's a
Yes.
good man.
And now you're doing it again because now you have a
Oh
7-year-old.
my
So
God.
now
And
you're getting
he's
in the
so
thick of the,
different. They're night and day different. Malachi was cake from like 4 to 10. I would say even 4 to 14. 10 got a little weird, because they start getting in, their friends become more important than their family and, those types of things. But 14 is really when I was like, I think I'm going to ship you off to Africa and rid myself of this burden, and give you a reality check of how grateful you should be. But Rylan is completely opposite. He is fiery. He's got so much, and you know what? I was gonna say, oh, I mean, he is an Aries. He is the fire sign, but so is Malachi. Share a birthday, which is wild.
right.
But I mean, Rylan is the epitome of a fiery little soul, and he's got so much energy, and he's very outspoken and
Yeah, he is.
opinionated, and he knows what he wants. And I tell him, I'm like, you should be like a corporate attorney one day because you love to argue and debate, and you think it's what it's so cool. It's so cool though to be a parent, but also equally as challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially going, back through it. I know a lot of parents who, like they have the older kids and then the younger kids. It's like such a huge
Yeah.
season difference
I had a
going.
lot more energy when I was raising Malachi. I don't have as much energy raising Rylan, and maybe that's part of it. But it's it's fun. I think at the end of the day, collectively, it is fun.
It
And I
is
think we have to
fun. Yeah.
remember like that part of it, right? Yeah, we're exhausted, and yeah, you're an Uber driver half the time, and
Right.
it's and again, I think that just comes back to the grace that we need to give ourselves.
Yeah. And enjoying like this process there are those days that are so hard to enjoy the
Mhm.
process of motherhood and especially the different seasons that the kids bring. You said something important, like when they start to get to that age, right? Like right now, Rylan is like all about mom, I'm sure, and it's
Yeah.
exhausting. But in a few years, he's gonna
Mhm.
be like, get get out of my room. I'm
Right.
talking to my friends. Like,
Mhm.
you're so annoying. Okay, maybe
Right.
that's just my personal experience. I don't know. I haven't called him
No,
names.
absolutely. And that's what I went through with Malachi. And I mean, like last night, 1 a.m., Rylan crawled in bed with me and snuggled me. Like, so it's a ticking time bomb. But I mean, don't tell Malachi, but I went down and visited him in Houston a few weeks ago. And I mean, he's in a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 other dudes. It's totally bachelor pad vibes. And I'm not sleeping on that couch because I don't know what happens on that couch.
Oh
So
gosh,
I
yes.
sleep in his bed with him. And yeah, my 20-year-old, and the one of the nights, like I woke up and my 20-year-old, who's like 8 inches taller than me, is like snuggled up in me. And I was just like, oh my God, thank you. Thank you. Thank you
It's
for this moment.
serious.
Thank you for like waking me up and do it. And I told him, and he just got this little smirk on his face, and he'd probably kill me. But I mean, none of his friends are going to listen to this, so it's fine.
I hope y'all do and
And
realize that
if you
cuddling your
do,
mommy
it's
is really
okay.
important for our mom
I
souls.
know it is. It is. And it's, I think for those parents who are like in that really hard time of teenage years,
Yeah.
I mean, it's very dynamic in the girl teens and the boy teens. Mine was more with boys. With Malachi was more of like this power struggle. And it made me think a lot about like the olden days when they kicked the kid out at like 15 to go like take on their own stuff and things. So it's like, I think it's like genetically, when they start going through puberty, they're becoming this man, but yet we hold on to them for about a handful more years. And that's fine. I agree with it. It's not like I want to kick my kid out at 15 today. I don't, but
Right.
tomorrow, who knows?
Those moments,
Um,
right?
but it's this dose of testosterone, and everything in their body is saying, I am a man now.
Yeah.
Hear me roar. I'm gonna take on my own tribe. I need my own thing. And so it was this power struggle. And oh man, too many evenings crying. But I had a couple
Yeah.
friends who have boys who were like, listen, when he hits like between 20 and 24, your boy is going to come back to you. Your
Mhm.
son, like that mother son bond is like no other.
Yeah. And
And
I think that's what
so,
we all hope for, right? Because
yeah,
like I'm in the thick of the teenage stages and we have
yeah.
our moments for sure. He strong-willed human, he is. And
Because we want them to be that way,
yeah,
right?
we
We're
want
like,
them to
yeah, we want strong, independent, self-sufficient humans. And then they like throw that back at us. And we're like, no, not with me, not
right.
in my house, out
Can we
there.
dial it down just a little bit with me?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but and that's exactly what we want. And it is exhausting, but it is, going back, like it is so fun to see that independence starting.
Hmm.
But there is so many of those tough times. And I'm gonna like just repeat what you said is like you had friends with that had older boys. Dude, we need to have that sense of community
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's so often that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a horrible parent. My kid just lost his shit, or did something. And then it's like, I get on the phone with somebody who has an older teen or, boy who moved out. And it's like, oh no, Megan, like they're going to
Yeah.
have those moments. Just remember to give yourself grace. And I feel like that's going to be the theme of this, right? It's giving ourselves grace. And then, like with that rupture comes this beautiful repair because
Yeah.
thankfully, you know, one, I think I've been able to break some of the cycles, and I know you have too,
Yeah.
of how we are able to show up in the relationship with our kids.
Hmm.
And then with that rupture comes this beautiful repair. And then
Absolutely.
both of us grow through that,
100%.
right?
And most of that is done through open communication.
Right. And I also want to say is that being vulnerable enough to reach out to somebody who's been in that season before
Hmm.
and just be able, if I'm not able to give myself grace, be able to say like I feel like I'm fucking up. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I don't have the answers. Like I need
Girl,
some
I
help.
I walked into Ryland's principal's office, the head of the school, just last week and bawled my eyes out to her in the office because we've been having behavior issues and it's been persistent. And I get this email and she's like, I need a parent teacher conference and we need to look at this and that and the other. And I literally just threw my hands up. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And it's okay. Like, I don't have to have it all figured out. I don't know what to do.
No.
I walked in there. I bawled my eyes out to her. I told her I don't know what to do. And she looked at me, and I love the Montessori school system primarily for this. She looked at me. She goes, you don't have to have it all figured out. That's why we're a team. She said, we will all meet. We will figure out what's best for Rylan, and we will support him in the best way moving forward.
Oh,
And
I love that for
I was like,
you.
okay, cool.
Yeah, get
Let's
your
go.
people again. It's
Yeah.
like I'm glad that you have your people because that's not always the case, right?
No,
Like
especially
our
in the school systems. Like,
yeah.
it's like, are the teachers really on our side? I mean, I don't know. I think at least initially they all start out with good intention, but I
Yeah,
think through frustrations and just,
totally.
the system screwing people over here and there. I mean, we all get a little burnt out, but dealing with our youth is I think it's a very special task that we should not take for granted, no matter who we are in that child's life. You could be a teacher, you could be a coach, you could be an instructor, you could just be another mom or dad that happens to be the parent of that child's friend. We all impact the kids, and I think we have to remember that.
Yeah, and I think, you said earlier like most of us are all trying to do the best that we can.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, the system is really struggling right now to support the kids and where they're at. I mean, what was it? I don't remember exactly where it was, but the generation that we have coming up right now is one of the fastest growth in generation that we've ever had when it comes to the education that they can get because we have so much technology.
Hmm.
And so generationally, this is one of the biggest gaps that we've ever seen. And that makes it really difficult for us to show up and for education systems to show up in a space like this. And that's hard to give grace to because it's hard to really grasp what that
Well, and
looks
just,
like.
I mean, our education system is built on a foundation from, I was actually just reading about this the other day, like 1920 something. right? Like 23 or 26, I don't know, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And it hasn't changed at all. The fundamentals of how we go to school, what we study, not necessarily the contents of what we study, but the subjects we study in the manner that we do it was all based in the 1920s and really in an effort to mold people into going into factory type jobs, corporation type jobs. It's not designed for the free thinker, the entrepreneur, the artist, the, what have you.
And we need them, right? Like we
Yeah,
need
absolutely.
the free thinkers,
Absolutely.
and I would venture to say Ryland's a free thinker. He is a strong-willed kid. I mean, you've shared
Yeah.
videos and his personality, I mean, very much
Yes.
like my oldest. And we need them
Yeah.
and that energy. And so, kind of going back to we have this whole system and we are trying to do our best with what's handed to us. You
Mhm.
know, not only are you doing this whole motherhood thing, one, with your first kiddo, you were young.
Yeah, I was 20 when I had him. 21, sorry.
Yeah.
No, I hadn't turned 21 yet. Yes, I did. I don't know.
Right
I
around
can't remember.
2021.
It was a
That
long
is
time ago.
young.
It's
It was
20,
a
yeah, I think I was 21 when I had him, and then I turned 22 6 months later is what it was, something like that.
yeah.
Anyway, yes, I was young. I was very young.
And now, I mean, now you're doing it again in a totally different season that not only have you grown, and you said when you were 20, you were out fighting a freaking war,
Mm,
had no idea what you were doing.
mm-mm.
I mean, tell us a little bit about, as obviously we're bouncing all over here, but I mean, tell us a little bit about what that journey was like for you, why you decided. I mean, I know how freaking smart, determined, strong. I mean, you're a strong-willed woman yourself.
Yeah.
Like we went to high school out in a very small town, by the way, in Pahrump. And I think most of the strong-willed women and those that didn't absolutely like love that area, maybe I'm talking for myself,
I
but
know. Why do you think I left? I think the weekend after we graduated, I was out. I'm like, I cannot
yeah,
wait to be out of this town.
I think most of us were like, get me out.
Well, I
And
didn't even,
so,
it's funny because, I was in Vegas until sixth grade, and we moved out there because we got horses, and it was obviously much more affordable to have land out there. It was more of a horse community. And so that was the primary reason that we moved out there. But we moved in the middle of my sixth grade year. Like,
mm,
wrong time to move any child, honestly. I went from friends that I grew up with my entire time to this small town. And quite frankly, I didn't even know what methamphetamine was until I moved to Pahrump.
same.
And
Yes,
we had a huge
that's
meth
right.
problem. All the girls were freaking getting tweaked out. Not all, a lot, but it was there, and they talked about it. And it was like this, like they were proud of it. I remember. And it was just an interesting dynamic. And I'm lucky that I never got involved in that, but I watched many of our friends
Yeah.
get caught up in it. And it was just a very interesting dynamic. And I don't know if a lot of the people that we went to high school with like know the challenges I had during school, but I did not do well in school, and not because I wasn't capable. I just like my mom was a single mom. She was going through her own stuff and things. She was not really present in my life. My sister was 5 years younger than me, so I got stuck most of the time watching her. I wasn't able to really go hang out with friends or go to parties or anything like that because I had to watch my sister. So there was this like resentment that started to build up too against my sister, which I've, now come to terms with, and she and I have talked about it, but I was not a great big sister to her. And then I was like, well, I can't go to the party. I'll bring the party to me. So I would have parties at the house while my mom was gone. Like, I was not a good teenager at all. And I think my dad wasn't present in my life. And so I sought love, quote unquote love from boys. And, of course, teenage boys, they give you what you think is love when you're a kid, and that's not real love. And anyway, it was messy, and my grades suffered from it. My mom never talked to me about and I think this is also why I'm so communicative with my boys, is because I did, that's one of those, well, my mom didn't do that and I hated that, so I'm going to do the polar opposite. And she never talked to me about the importance of school and grades and how that would impact the rest of my life, or even what I wanted to do with my life. And she never talked to me about boys and sex and anything like that. She never talked to me about drugs ever. So it's like, and as kids, we're naturally just curious. So if we hear our peers talking about any of these things, we want to know more. And sometimes our curiosity brings us down really rough paths, and then we have to learn the hard way. But I think because she never really talked to me about school, I just let it go. And it was our senior year, actually probably our junior year towards the end, I start hearing about our friends talking about ACTs and SCTs and colleges and applications. And I think I got a little bit of FOMO. I was like, well, what the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
And my GPA was shit. And so my senior year,
Well,
I was
and
like,
also,
okay,
I mean, we were in a rural town, and one
yeah.
of the things I think back about is that the only thing I was getting talked to about in school was military. I don't remember conversations
I don't
from
even remember
counselors
talking to
or
anyone about military though. Um, that had no impact on my decision. Um, I just, I remember my senior year, I 4.0 student, if you just look at my senior year. Like, I was like, okay, I've got to my goal was I need to get the hell out of my mom's house. This is not an environment I want to be in anymore. I want to get the hell out of Pahrump. Like, I
yeah,
don't want to be in this town. I don't like it. And with those two things, I finally realized the impact that grades. And I don't know, I was like, well, maybe if I just pull all A's my senior year, I can get my GPA up. And it wasn't enough, unfortunately. So a lot of our friends that weren't going off to school were getting into the industry. And in Vegas, that industry includes stripper, right? Like you can
right.
be 18 and go strip. And I mean, in Vegas normalizes all of these things,
Yeah.
whether, it's stripping or cocktails or
Yep.
the, the girls at the clubs. Like it's so normal to be
Yeah.
in your 20s and be in any one of those professions in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's not like other town, like Montana, like that is a taboo. Like you cannot be a successful, respectable woman and a stripper. In Vegas, that's not the case. I have plenty of friends that were, and they are respectable. Like you wouldn't even know
Yeah.
that that's what they did in the evening. But
Right.
anyway, I literally looked at my life and I was like, well, I'm going to end up twirling around a pole, or I can go in the military. And I came from a military family. My grandfather served in 3 wars, made it out alive. I have no idea how. My uncle is a Vietnam veteran. I'm I'm on the younger end of the spectrum of like 20 plus cousins, and almost all of my cousins were in the military. And so my mom made the suggestion one day, maybe you should go in the military. And I thought she was absolutely insane. I'm like, no, that's crazy. Mind you, everyone, this is June of 2021.
Mhm.
So I remember calling my dad, and I talk about this in my book actually. I remember calling my dad and saying, Mom wants me to go in the military, and thinking like, all right, Dad, time for you to show up, right? Like protect your little girl. No, he was like, yeah, that's a great idea. I was like, sure, the one time they agree on something, right? So I went exploring, and I think maybe because I saw the impact that drugs had and I like wanted to rebel against that, thank God.
Right.
I, at that point in time, got the idea in my head that I wanted to be a DEA agent, and I wanted to
Right.
go like fight against the war on drugs from that spectrum. So talking to a recruiter and sharing that, they're like, oh, well, you should be a military police officer. And I joined the National Guard initially thinking that I could get school paid for, boom, ticket into college, and get real world experience, which were 2 of the qualifications to become a DEA employee. You had to have both of those. So June
Check. Yep.
of 2021 or 2001, God is forever ago. 2001, I was only 17 still. I graduated at 17. my mom had to sign over her parental rights to the US government. And Uncle Sam became my new baby, my new daddy. And I was on a delayed entry program. So I wasn't set to go to basic training until January of 2002. And I thought, okay, well, I'll squeeze in a semester of college. So I was going to CSN for that first semester of college. And I felt great. I'm like, okay, like I got my shit together, right? Like I made one decision and already I've, projected myself onto this completely different path. And then 9/11 happened. And the next thing I know, I'm literally training to go to war. And so I trained most of 2002 with basic training and AIT, came back. We were in Fort Lewis, Washington, training to go. And by May of 2003, I was in Iraq, and we didn't come home until that winter. And if you want to know all about that, go read the book.
Exactly. It's a
But I
great
mean,
book.
it's literally
It's a
the
great
journal of a 19-year-old version of Dallas,
Mhm.
in and out of all the things that happened there. And the funny thing is, Megan, I came home and a couple things I want to talk about. One, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was so lost. I was 20 years old, had just experienced more than all of my friends combined that weren't in the military. I had more experience than all of my friends combined, but in military verbiage that I didn't know how to quite translate into civilian terminology. And a lot of responsibility that I shouldn't have ever had. No 19 or 20-year-old should have. And I was completely lost. I had no idea. And with all of that, layer in the fact that I had a lot of post-traumatic stress, a lot from
Which,
all
of
of the
course, at that
things.
time, I remember us having, conversations about it. Of course, you didn't know at that time.
No, I knew
Right.
I knew I was having nightmares. I knew I couldn't sleep. I knew that I was agitated and irritable very easily. I had a quick temper. I knew that I was covering those things up or trying. I mean, I will call it, I was self-medicating. I didn't know that term then, but I was masking those feelings with alcohol. And then I got pregnant. And honestly, it was probably the biggest blessing, even though, at 20 years old, finding out that you're pregnant and then turning 21 and realizing, okay, like this is real. Mind you, I didn't find out I was pregnant until I was 19 weeks pregnant. So I had no good prenatal care. I'm already starting to feel like a failure as a mom, right? Like you didn't take care of your body. You were drinking, you were blackout drunk. Your kid's going to be jacked up. I had two doctors recommend, military doctors recommend that I abort my child for that reason and because of all the vaccinations that I had been given during my deployment that were not FDA approved. Yes, they treat the military like guinea pigs. Where do you think all your vaccinations are tested? Yeah, I'll say it. I'm the guinea pig.
Right.
I'm sure there's a tracking device in my body somewhere. Anyway, Malachi and becoming a mom made me step it up. It made me refocus and understand, okay, I've got to do something. And somehow, some way, I worked my way back, and I wasn't a DEA agent, but I did become an intelligence analyst with the DEA. And that was 6 months after Malachi was born.
Yeah. That was a wild time for you.
Yeah, it absolutely was. So then, I mean, let's layer on some more stuff, right? Let's be 22 with a baby, single mom, and all the things that come with postpartum everything. And let's just stuff that down too. Let's go ahead and stuff that down too,
Right. So
right?
we have the layers of the PTSD that we couldn't, obviously, you couldn't name at that time,
Mm-mm.
with all of the responses happening,
Mm-hmm.
all of the triggers that you couldn't name. And then, I mean, nobody really talked much about postpartum,
No, no.
right?
And
Like,
especially like, if anything, they looked at me and they were like, oh, you're just a young mom. Oh, you're an irresponsible young lady and all the things. And it's like, well, yeah, but I look back now as self-analyzing myself and think, well, yeah, I had some reckless behaviors, but I wonder why. Like yeah, was masking all these things that were happening. And I did have a few friends that I served with that went and got help. And the first thing that happened was they ripped their security clearance from them as soon as they were diagnosed with PTSD. And they put them on a bunch of pills and they were numb. They
Yeah.
had no more feeling. And I knew I didn't want either of those. I have held a top secret security clearance since I was 17 years old. I still hold one. And if I had had my clearance ripped from me, my entire career wouldn't exist right now.
Yeah.
So in a weird roundabout way, I knew that I needed my clearance to me was more important than my mental health
Mhm.
because I needed to provide for my child.
Yeah.
And so I just pushed it all aside, stuffed it down deep. But, ladies and gentlemen, that stuff just doesn't go away. It hoards inside of you and I like to say it festers like cancer
Yeah. Yeah.
because a lot of cancers can remain like dormant until they're agitated. And then it's like overnight you go from like a stage 1 cancer to a stage 4 terminal. And I feel like our mental health is is very relatable to that type of progress that can
Right.
happen. And that's based on what I experienced.
Well, and I
I
mean, there's so much research out there. Body keeps the score,
Mhm.
right? Viktor Frankl talks about it. I mean, there's so much research about how important it is that when experiences happen, right? Small T trauma to big T trauma,
Mhm.
that if we shove it down, our body is still storing it. So it
Yeah.
is a great connection that you're talking about. And I know that that comes from work and research that you've done
Yeah.
to try and get through these parts with the fear of not being able to actually access the help during
Yeah.
that time.
1,000%. And eventually, though, it all caught up with me. I was in a very toxic marriage. And I think that was kind of the needle that broke the camel's back is that I had straw. I'm really bad at these, by the way,
That's all
which is
right.
funny. I'll tell you a story offline about that. But anyway,
Oh, we want to hear it online, but I'll take it
it was the
offline.
icing on like the
Icing on
dozen
the cake,
layered
friend.
cake. It was the end of it,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And I contemplated suicide. I remember being on the floor of my bathroom in the fetal position, just wishing for it to just be done
Yeah.
and being real and vulnerable here. The only thing that really kept me going is I kept thinking about, okay, well, how would I do it? Um, and how do I do it to where the boys don't find me and don't see that because I didn't want to traumatize them? It's hard still for me to even think about
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
thought about going out into the middle of the forest in Montana and just no one would ever find me and I'd just disappear. But then I thought about all the hours that people would spend looking for me because I just disappeared. It was bad. It tormented my brain. It was very
Yeah.
painful. And mind you, at this time, Rylan was 2 years old and Malachi was 15. So I had terrible twos. I had a 15-year old. I had an abusive husband and all of my big and little T trauma was catching up with me.
Yeah.
And something had to give. And weirdly enough, my cousin got me involved in this nutrition MLM. And really I got into it because I was just very curious about what they were saying about the supplements and the how it would impact mental health.
And I remember a big thing that you and I talked about is the gut brain connection.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so I started learning and being educated on the impact of nutrition on our mental health. And I started taking these supplements, and it was mostly just superfoods and omega 3s. And I mean, things that we should be educated on and be taking.
Yeah.
Um,
Please,
and
for who, like, we'll pause here for a second. It is
yeah.
so validly important as Dallas is talking about these supplements. When you're struggling with mental health, do all the rule outs. Go get
Mhm.
the blood work done. Go see where you're deficient in some areas because more times than not, when you're in stressful environments and it's not at the forefront of taking care of your health, right? Your physical health. let alone your mental health. And so both of those together are so important to check in
Mhm.
on. And
Absolutely.
and if that's the journey that you start on, it's a start and it's going
Yeah.
to make a big impact.
When so often as I'll say both parents, but especially moms, just because women in general, like we put everyone else before us, right? Like I, to this day, give myself a hard time because I make Rylan lunch and I make him an elaborate breakfast every morning. Like he gets it, like I make eggs. Why wouldn't I just make a couple extra eggs for myself and eat them too? No, I
Yes.
don't. Typically, I eat his scraps. If there's anything left, shove a quarter of a banana down my throat and on the road I go. And that's just like I say every day, I'm just like, why do you do this to yourself, Dallas? Like you've got to do better. But back to like discovering the impact that nutrition would have, I got like even I don't maybe just 1% up. Like I just felt like a little bit of light in the very dark place that I was in, and it motivated me. And I started reading a couple books, very like Tony Robinson type of like self-motivating books, and I knew that I needed to get out of that relationship. And for sake of time and unnecessary information, I did. And after about 7 months of self isolation, pity party, party of one, right? Depressed.
Right.
I knew that I needed women. I needed network. I needed a community. So I went looking for it, and it was a very scary situation where I put myself out there, but I showed up to a professional women's networking group. Like I knew that my frequency was low, like as low as it could
Right.
possibly be. And I needed to find women on like a frequency further than I could even reach to help me out of this. And I did. And that was the beginning of my, what I will call my healing journey, was making that decision and understanding that I needed a supportive community of women who were 400 levels above me to help me out, and that would love me and embrace me for exactly who I am and where I'm at, and with no judgment.
Oh my
And
gosh.
by the
And
grace of
that's
God,
so
I
hard,
found it.
right? Because
Yeah.
that's the narrative that we tend to tell ourselves as women is I'm going to walk into a room, I'm going to be judged.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, not going to be accepted for who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think that for many women, and I hear this story all the time from clients to when I put myself into those uncomfortable rooms and meet amazing other women, is, I mean, this isn't something that's developed overnight, right? We don't wake up and we're like, oh, women are scary, right? We have most of us have a long history of
Being
times and
burnt.
moments and experiences that
Yeah.
women have not been that safe space and that
No.
encouraging space. But that just means that you're in the wrong room. And
Absolutely.
it is about getting outside of that comfort zone. And I remember, talking about some of the books that we've mentioned, I remember in Viktor Frankl's book, and he often would have said, you know, when you have the why, you'll find the how.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Is that you found
Yeah.
that why, even if it was that one thing, you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to feel motivated to do it. Motivation is bullshit.
I agree.
But when you find that why, you're going to find the determination to get outside of that comfort zone. And you, Dallas, I know, and for the people listening, you have definitely proven that over and over and over again of how important it is to get outside that comfort zone, because now you're like living the fruits of all that labor of getting through that comfort zone.
Yeah. I mean, it really was a wild domino effect. But like that night, that one night, I met my holistic therapist, and she has helped me completely change everything and get to the point where I am. I give her credit every possible time that I can, and she turns it around on me and I say bullshit. But Heather Maccabee with Shifting Sands is the one of the most remarkable women I've ever met. And I think why she's so impactful beyond the work that she does with resonance repatterning and whatnot is that I use this analogy that she walked through the fire, extinguished herself, put on armor, and then walked her ass back in the fire to pull us out.
Yeah.
And that, because she shared her story, right? And that's what we've been talking about. Because she was vulnerable and shared her story with me, and I understood that she had walked 1,000 miles in my shoes. She was just a few years ahead of me in her own journey.
Yeah.
I knew that I could do it too. It was just enough inspiration for me to just literally lay down on her couch with open arms and say, okay, let's try this. I don't know what it is. I don't understand it, but I'm open to healing. And if you can help me through that journey, then I'm all ears, I'm all arms, I'm here wholly. And
Yeah.
that started summer of 2022.
Holy hell. Like when you think about the
It's
timeline
fresh.
that you've just given us, right?
Yeah.
From 2001, and then all the things,
Mm-hmm.
doing all of that by yourself until 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Dang it, right? So
Yeah.
I'm I'm curious for those that are listening that could be still at those stepping places that you were at, in 2010, um, and knowing that you need to get help. You know that in order to get help, you could lose a lot, right? Like that clearance for you was way, way too big for you to be able to get the help at the time. What are some things that you would say to those that are listening and not really knowing the steps to take or how to take them or where to even begin, right? Because like you said,
Mm-hmm.
that one step of even just getting the why behind, checking in on your health was a big step for you and it made a
Yeah.
big impact. What are some of the things that you would say to somebody who's still at that spot? Like, I really don't have an option and I don't know what direction to take, but I know I'm struggling.
Oh, yeah. Um, I would say get curious. That's what I would say. Because there's so many different layers that you can start right out of the gate. Two of the things that you absolutely have full control over is your diet and your environment,
Yeah.
and they can impact so much. So clean house, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fully in your control. And, I hear people, oh, well, it's so expensive. No, it's actually not. And I've actually heard this from multiple people and I've read it in books too. So I don't know where exactly to give credit to this, but it's basically you can either pay for your health now
Yeah.
or you're going to pay for your health later. And I would rather pay for it now and live my life to the fullest and do all of the things that I'm doing and help others than be laid up in a hospital bed at 62 years old,
Yeah.
about 30 years too soon for what I want to live to be, and be
Yeah.
miserable and
Yeah.
be on meds and be restrained from being outside and doing things or watching my grandchildren or traveling. So you just have to make the decision. You hear like, well, life is hard, like buying or being environmentally cautious and nutritious conscious is hard, but
Choose
so
your
is not.
hard.
Yeah, so which hard do you want to pick? And so I
Right.
think you have to accept responsibility and take accountability for that first and foremost. That
Because you
little
do
bit of
have the control
nutrition.
over that, right?
Absolutely, you have
And
1,000% control over that. And a lot of times with mental health, like simply put, if you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. And so it's like really bringing yourself back into your immediate control. And that will help with both depression and anxiety. Okay, what can I do right now, today? What is within my reach? And focusing on that, it'll bring you out of both of those sides and then doing that little by little. I'm not saying you have to like clear all of the toxic things that are in your house out right now.
right.
I would start with your laundry soap because we are living and sleeping in that. But that's, a topic for a whole nother discussion. I would start with your
But what
environment,
like
start with your
I think
nutrition.
what's important in what you said, not to interrupt, but these small impacts to start getting curious, right? And you're like,
Mhm.
just look at your laundry soap. Like if that's what you have the capacity to give,
Yeah.
that's getting curious enough, right?
Hmm.
Because maybe going and changing my diet might feel too big,
Hmm.
but looking at my laundry soap, like that's freaking doable. I could like
Yeah.
order some Amazon on a
Yeah.
little healthy laundry soap.
And it's
And
way more
why is it
affordable nowadays that people are wanting to be more cautious about their environment and the toxic things that
load? Yeah.
are in all of the stuff in the things. But then once you get curious about that, I would then challenge you to get curious about healing modalities. I think traditionally we think, oh, I need to go to a therapist and it's talk therapy and I got to sit there and I got to talk and marinate in all of my issues. That absolutely works for some people.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me.
Right.
And that's part of like why I'm doing what I'm doing with the female veterans. It's all about exposure. I just want to introduce art therapy, music therapy, equine therapy, resonance repatterning, EDMR, TFT, like all the things, because one of them will stick.
Right.
But you're not going to
Make
know
it
which
yours.
one works best for you unless you dabble in it. And there are a lot of like free consultations, free introductory things. Like just go try it out and then get curious about your body and how it responds to it. Because the more in tune you are, and I rejected my intuition for so long, and it's only been the last year or so that I've really started to listen to that. And it's funny because every once in a while I still am like, nah, I don't know. I think intuition, you might be wrong. And I do the opposite and it comes back to bite me in the ass. And I'm like, damn it,
Right.
I should have listened to myself. And it's fine. That's life. It's a journey.
And you're learning.
I encourage you to also like just look at everything you fucked up in your entire life and find the lesson in it because there's something there. There's
Yeah.
something. There's a little nugget of something. And even if it's like, don't do that again, cool. But that's a lesson. And then now that dark time, that mess up, that mistake that you keep locked in your closet, now it has value.
And you've shifted the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of whatever power you can give to that mistake or that fuck up that you've made. I mean, again, choose your hard.
Yeah.
Is it harder to look at that or let that come up randomly and then talk shit to yourself about your fuck up?
Yeah.
Or, and this could take work. This isn't an overnight thing, but
Mm-mm.
we can also look at these mistakes or these moments in our life and shift the narrative to it by simply, and I'm gonna put that in air quotes because it's sometimes not that easy, look at them and find the lesson in it and
Mm-hmm.
then get to grow from it.
Yeah.
All of us have had failures. Most of us that are high achievers have had multiple failures.
Yeah.
And now we're just getting more comfortable in talking about them because if I can talk about my failures and you can hear my failures, then let's freaking grow together rather
Yeah.
than just see like you said in the beginning, the highlight reel,
Mm-hmm.
and then shift that narrative of I fucked up or I'm fucked up because of this
Mm-hmm.
to I actually learned X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z from this. And I want to share that with you or whatever it may be.
Absolutely. And like the other thing I've learned like with therapy is when we get into these mentalities of like the victim mode, right? Or the perpetrator mode. And so if you feel yourself like angry, you're probably living in that perpetrator space. You have to again get curious, like why? Why am I so angry all the time? Like why do I want like if you're the person driving down the road and you're just like, oh, I hope you drive off this and like why? Like and I have come to find with my own journey that anger is just a surface feeling and there is always something just below it. And usually it's disappointment, frustration, sadness, something that you're masking because society told you that you can't talk about that type of feeling because it makes you weak. So we
Yeah,
put forth anger and rage because that looks strong. And that's
right.
bullshit.
And because, and just to like capitalize on what you said, oftentimes, I see in the therapy or even in the mentor side is that anger is so much more socially acceptable, right?
Yeah.
And
It's so shitty. Like what? Like I look at people when they're angry and all I wonder now, and it took years worth, but
right.
all I wonder now is what's really going on? Like what are
Yeah.
you and this has been helpful with Rylan going back to parenting, right? Like kids
Yes.
don't know how to communicate their feelings unless you help them navigate the proper words to communicate their feelings. But
Yeah.
if we don't know what they're feeling, it's like this weird crazy cycle. I don't know how you're feeling, so I don't know how to tell you how to tell me how you're feeling. So you get frustrated. Like it's like,
Yes.
right?
And so going to the root of how are you feeling? Let me give you
Right.
words to those
Yeah. Like
emotions.
help them navigate it, because anger, when they're angry and rageful and they're physically acting out or throwing things or whatever, or throwing a temper tantrum, there's something underneath. And with
Yeah.
children, a lot of times it's frustration. They don't feel heard or seen a lot. That's usually what it is. So, I mean, I think my overarching entire, like, if I had to sum up my advice on this podcast, would just be like, get curious.
Yeah. And I love that because if you do get curious and if you think about like the anger as an iceberg, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that anger's at the top, we get to see the iceberg, but all of the bigger part of the iceberg is underneath. Get
Mm-hmm.
curious about what's underneath,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that honestly, that's the foundation of why I started Mental Summit and why I started these conversations is because I know so many people from high achievers to homelessness to everyone in between, from kids that are 4 years old to adults that are in their 80s, if they don't have the words for those emotions, it makes life so challenging.
And it's
I
like the
can't
default's
express,
anger. It's weird.
yes. And it's natural, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think you mentioned it even earlier, going back to parenting, is we see the kids, our boys and their testosterone,
Mm-hmm.
get it, right? Go bigger, go faster, go stronger. It's absolutely acceptable. But
Yeah.
putting those words into emotions or putting those emotions into words and being able to
Yeah.
express that isn't weakness. It's one of the bravest things that
Mm-hmm.
any man or woman can do. And
Yep.
it's going to gain you the power back. And that's exactly what I've seen you doing over and over again is getting that power back over those emotions.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I tell my boys, I tell Malachi, my 20-year-old, I tell him, like, well, a couple things. Scientifically, when you cry, it's actually releasing feel good chemicals. Your
Yes.
body is literally trying to self regulate. So if you just allow yourself to cry instead of, oh, I can't cry because that's weakness, you're going to give yourself the medicine you already need naturally.
Your
I'm
body's
not
trying to
saying,
tell you what it needs.
right. You're literally trying to cry because your body's trying to produce chemicals that it needs right now. So go take a shower and just cry it all out. I can tell you I cry in the shower at least 3 times a week. I
Yeah.
just bawl my eyes out and let it out. That's why you feel better when you cry.
I use
Because
a run.
all
Like,
those
let me
chemicals
get on a
run
run,
and
and
cry.
all of a sudden, I'm
Well, I
like,
wouldn't be able
oh
to
shit.
breathe.
I know. Well, then it turns into a walk.
Well,
Yes.
that's the thing. But I tell Malachi all the time, I'm like, listen, like if you're feeling some kind of way, let it out. And so
It's
like,
totally
and
okay.
he's very logical and I know that about him. So if you can explain the science to it for him, he's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. And so he'll go with it. And and then the other thing that I thought of while we've been talking about this, and I love Brene Brown. My
Yes.
like bucket list, like wish on a star would be to be able to meet her and have a conversation with
That's
her
so
one day.
amazing. Yeah.
But she
So thankful for her
she
work.
talks about sitting in front of a room full of special forces operators from the military. And she asked them, and I can't remember exactly the question, but it was something around the lines of like, what made, what does the word courageous mean to you? Like, what does it mean to be courageous? And they were describing all of these situations where, to sum it up, that they were in vulnerable situations,
Yeah.
right? I was being shot at and I had a guy that was down. So I maneuvered in, I faced my fear and I put myself in a vulnerable situation and I maneuvered my way to help save that guy. And there was that heroic thing. And everyone always calls it courageous. But at the end of the day, and Brene has so much work to support this,
Yeah.
it's vulnerable. Vulnerability, she says, being courageous, courage does not exist without vulnerability.
Correct. It
It
can't.
can't. So
Nope.
every time you're like, oh, well, I don't want to be vulnerable, well, then just change it to courageous. So I don't want to be courageous. Well,
Shift the
cry
word.
because it's courageous. Talk about your dark days because it's courageous. Because there is literally no courageous act. Tell me one, please. No courageous act ever that doesn't come from vulnerability.
Right. stepping into your fears and walking through them. And
Mhm.
oftentimes will take support, but finding, like you've mentioned it multiple times, finding that why, it's going to be
Mhm.
bigger than that fear that's trying to hold you back
Yep.
or what we would consider in society as weakness.
Yep. That's why we gotta break that stigma.
So, yeah, and I mean, you and I are both here to shout as big as we can, as many
Yeah.
times as we can, to break those stigmas
Yeah.
and, to let our men and women know support is not weakness. It is courageous. It is brave. And there's so many people out there that are here willing to help and that have walked that path. And I would venture to say, I mean, you can't go back, nor I hope at this point, now that you have done the healing, you've learned the lessons through it, and now you're out there doing badass things, and that wouldn't take, like that wouldn't be possible without the steps and the history that you've had, right?
1,000%. I use the analogy that I've been working on a million piece puzzle. Think about having literally, I don't even think that exists, a million piece puzzle, maybe. But imagine that's your life and you go through life and you're trying to put this puzzle together. And every once in a while, you come across, like an all black piece and you're like, fuck this piece. Where does it go? Right.
Yeah.
And you don't even have the picture. You have no idea what the puzzle's supposed to look like. You just have a million pieces and you're supposed to put it together blind. And you come across this black piece and you're like, I don't know what this is. Fuck this piece. And you come across another piece and it's jagged and it doesn't even look like it belongs. And you're like, what is that? I don't understand it. But eventually you get further in your journey and you found the corners and you found the edges and it starts to come together and you got a little bit of the middle and you take a step back and you're like, oh, I get it now. I needed that piece because that piece connected to that piece. And if I
Mm.
didn't have that piece, I wouldn't have found the corner. Or, it's just things start to make sense. So, like when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it and you're up to your eyeballs and you're in tears and you're rageful and you feel lost and broken and all the things, just remember that that's just one puzzle piece within your lifelong puzzle. And it does have meaning. Every single thing has meaning. I have been through so much in my life. I've been encouraged to write another book, but I just don't think I'll ever do it. So
Yes,
keep
do
on.
it. Do it. Don't you ever say
Yeah,
you won't do it. I
I,
know. You put your
I don't
mind to
know.
something again.
I
You
know.
put your mind to
I
it.
honestly don't know if I will. I've been asked to do an audio version of my book and I can't
Oh,
bring myself to do it because that means I have to read it and relive it again.
right.
I'm very much considering it, but been through
I'm
so
gonna
much
send
of
all
my
the
life that
energy
like
for that.
every I mean my entire mission right now is focused on female veterans and every new woman that I meet through my programs something in my life resonates with them. And
Right.
most of the times it's dark or gloomy or gray days that allow me to make that bond and connection that allows her to feel safe and secure with me and give her a little bit of hope and inspiration. And
Yeah.
so, therefore, all of that has meaning. And yeah, it's shitty that I went through war and experienced abuse and of all flavors, but these women wouldn't trust me with their heart and souls if they didn't know that I had been through a lot of that and that I'm brave enough to talk about it openly. And
Yeah.
so I was offline before we started. I said, you asked me, is there anything that you are not comfortable sharing? And I said, no, I'm comfortable with everything. And then I corrected myself. And I think it's important for the audience to really hear this. I'm actually not comfortable talking about 85% of the things that we've talked about. I'm
Yep.
not. But I do it anyway. I do it in the face of my fear. I do it in the face of someone coming back and, backlashing or talking shit or whatever.
Yeah.
Because even if one woman hears this today and she found courage and inspiration and was able to climb a little bit out of that dark hole from this, then it's all worth it. I don't care. Come at me with your tomatoes. Bring it.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Yeah. Because this why is way bigger than
Mm-hmm.
anything else that can be thrown at you.
Yeah.
And I've seen you walk it and practice it and preach it. And, you know, as we, wrap this up and like really this the moments of your darkness, you know, it is really telling, and it is really important to reiterate the fact that those crises never last forever.
No. And you don't have to do it alone.
No, there's no
Ever.
need to.
You don't have to do it alone. Even if you feel alone, and believe me, I have felt so alone and isolated. I don't know how to get you to find. You can call me. You can call me, text me, email me. I get phone calls at all hours of the night. I will help you find and navigate someone. And I know I can confidently stand here and say that Megan would do the same. So you can start
Absolutely.
here. You can start here with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the both of our purpose and why we're having so much of this conversation for you to share this story, but also the passion behind what we're doing behind the scenes and all the blood, sweat, and tears that go into the work that we do. Because if you're listening to this, you are important. There's steps that you have to take to make it through, but hang the fuck on,
Yeah.
because there's people out there to help. The darkness cannot stay forever. And there's so much light in this world. And there's
Mhm.
people out there like Dallas, like myself, that are doing this work because we know how important you are and how important the work is. And it's shitty to go through, and it's not easy, and it's not pretty, but hang on, because the other side, I mean, I'm going to make sure to link. I mean, Dallas has her book. She walked through it to be able to share those stories. Now she's out there. I mean, you have programs, you have volunteers, now you have research programs, um, to be able to support our female veterans. And
Mhm.
it's such a beautiful space that you're creating, and it's so inspirational to watch. But I know that that doesn't come without the tears. And so
No.
thank you for all the work that
No.
you're doing and providing space for so many, and for being here today and
Mm,
sharing your amazing story. I wish we were in person. I
I
know we
know.
would both have a nice glass of our maybe tequila and soda,
Yeah.
and give
Been
your
a minute.
give you a huge hug. I can't wait to see you for sure. And just keep doing what you're doing. And I'm so glad that you're still here to share your story.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Love you very much. And honestly, it was a pleasure to get to chat with you. And I mean, because oddly enough, this is how a lot of our conversations are anyway.
Right.
And so it's so cool to be able to capture it and be able to share it with the world.
Yeah, I love you, friend. Have a great rest of your day. And I hope those of you that are listening, if something resonated here, as I always say, please share. Please share these stories, with those that you love, because although those Instagram reels and whatever stories, more times than not, we don't know what those are, what they could be struggling with. And if
Mhm.
you have an intuition that somebody's struggling, just sharing something like this, our hope is to get these stories out there that they don't have to do this alone.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening today. Love you, friend. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you gained what you needed to hear today. Healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about the strength of moving forward. If today's episode resonated with you, take a moment to share it with someone you love, because when we share with love, we help to break the stigma together. If you want to connect with me and learn more about what we're doing over at Mental Summit to break these stigmas, please connect with me over at mymentalsummit.com. Keep showing up, keep growing, keep going together, and remember, you're not alone in this.